Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the Off Camber podcast, episode 11. This is our Saudi Arabia Grand Prix preview. Welcoming back Manul to the podcast.
Pleasure to be back again.
Yeah, pleasure to have you on, mate. So we are going to go over the weekend ahead and take a look at our predictions for the weekend and stuff that's been going on. What did you think of, quickly, your take on the Bahrain Grand Prix? Because,
Honestly, looking back to my prediction, right after the Australian Grand Prix, I said Oscar Piastri was going to be a force to be reckoned with.
Yep.
Glad to say that I'm right.
Yeah, we did acknowledge
glad
that.
to say that I'm right.
you hit that one on the head, that's for sure.
But I think biggest surprise, how good has Haas been?
Yes.
Holy shit.
Yes, let's look at the driver standings quickly. Because, it's been an interesting year. I mean, McLaren's taking points off one another.
Mm-hmm.
So, I feel like it's going to be sort of that direction, like where someone else is going to be in the hunt, like Verstappen, because obviously the McLaren boys, they are taking points off one another. So, technically Norris did increase his lead in the standings, but it was only by a point.
Yeah.
Sorry, only to 3 points to Piastri. So, there you go. So McLaren dominating, obviously. Verstappen still third. Russell punching above his weight, as we've been saying, as usual. But looking forward to a good weekend. Saudi Arabia, the track. Let's talk about the track quickly. Give me a rating out of 10. I asked Ishane this last week. We want to make this a regular thing.
Yep.
Give me a rating out of 10 for the track itself. Like, thoughts on the track.
For the track itself, look, Saudi Arabia, isn't necessarily the most interesting track to drive on, I'll be honest. A lot of just long straights. Right. It really is it's more of a test of speed than a test of aero, if anything.
Okay.
So it's an endurance race and it's a speed race. It's not about who can corner.
Yep, okay. Out of 10?
Out of 10, I'm going to give it's lower on the calendar for me, probably a 6.
Okay, interesting. See, I'm giving it a 6 as well, but probably for different reasons. I honestly freaking reckon this track is dangerous as fuck.
Yes.
And I was honestly pretty surprised when this track was announced and when it has, been going for this long, how we have avoided a serious, we had Mick Schumacher, had a big shot there, but luckily he walked away unscathed. But Verstappen, the track itself. So we had Verstappen's crash in 21 in qualifying, which was fine as well. But the track itself is so high speed with quick flick corners, left, right flicks, right to a long left-hander, where there's this blind, intersecting corners to one another. And you just think, it's just how is that safe? Where we've got drivers coming into corners at 300 Ks, and it's a blind corner that's taken at 250. What if a driver's sitting in the road? They're going to always have to be on top of the marshalling systems for tracks like this, because I reckon, personally, it's fucking dangerous, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, we both know why the Saudi Arabia track's on the calendar.
Yeah. Of course. But they did actually release a render of a new Saudi Arabian track.
Okay.
That they're planning to build. And the first turn is 20 stories up. So it's on top of a building or some shit. I don't know.
There you go. They are also building a wall that hasn't been built yet.
Yeah. Of course. So, we don't know what's going to happen. But in my opinion, it's a insanely fast track. And it's one of those tracks that if you watch it on board or you watch on the broadcast, it really demonstrates how much fucking speed goes on here, because it is lightning quick. But I also think it shares similarities to Japan, actually, in the fact that you've got sweeping corners that are hard to follow another car.
Yeah.
So I feel like this sort of race is going to be similar to that Japan race. We do know that Pirelli are using the softest compounds for this one. So they're using 3, 4, and 5. 6th is reserved for Monaco. Yep. But still, even with that, we'll see if we can produce any good racings. Because you've got turn 1, which is that big overtaking point.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe the last turn as well, which has a DRS zone before it. But otherwise, like we talked about, it's just those high speed, flowy corners. Like, there's no moves being done there, like in any race.
This is pretty much Monaco without the heritage. For those of you that want to go there.
Yeah, you could say that. Last time out, Max domination. Max was still in his, untouchable era.
Yeah.
So
bit different now.
And last year, this was Ollie Behrman's debut, if you remember, taking it back to his Ferrari session when Sainz was out.
Mm-hmm.
With his medical episode. No. Was it his appendix?
Oh, yeah. No, it was
he was out twice, but I don't remember which one was his appendix.
Because he did have his appendix removed.
Yes. Behrman stepped in and did a fucking incredible job. So, maybe another good performance from him this time out.
So he's got a seat now.
Yeah, 100%. So, yeah, let's move on to our predictions, and then we can ramble on about other shit.
Yep.
In the later parts, okay? So... We'll do the guess first, as usual. Give me a run through, and we'll discuss. All
right, let's go. Pole.
Yep.
Nothing changes. I'm saying Piastri.
Yep.
It's literally just Piastri, Norris, 1-2, but I'm saying Piastri. Winner. That doesn't change either. I'm saying it's Oscar.
Damn.
I think better driver.
Yep.
What are we doing next? Class drive. I'm gonna go out on a limb here, and I'm gonna say this is a Lewis Hamilton track.
Nice.
That's my class drive.
Yeah.
My run wide drive. See, this is where part of me really, really wants to say Fernando Alonso.
Yeah.
And I will continue to say Fernando Alonso until he.
Yeah.
It's just that thing is a tractor.
Yeah.
Alonso.
Well, he hasn't scored this season.
Yeah, he hasn't scored this season. So.
Yeah. So he's going to continue that trend,
He's going to continue that trend because,
enough.
honestly, I feel like... I don't know if it's favoritism with Lance Stroll, but for some reason he's faster than Alonso this season.
Yeah. He's got the points finish, but fuck, I don't know. Saying he's fast is a huge call. Huge call right here on off Camber. Manul's gone, Stroll's faster than Alonso.
I'll be honest, the last couple races that he's done, Alonso is either crashed out, stopped, DNF'd, or the one time they did race, he did finish higher than Alonso.
Yeah. Okay, so Alonso, could be sandbagging for 26 though.
Who knows?
But huge call out of off Camber. Heard it here first. Manul
from
Manul, an exclusive. So for me, I've gone to the other side of the papaya garage.
Ooh, okay.
So Norris to pole, Norris to win, Verstappen for class. Run wide is Saudi beats Kimi.
Wow. Okay.
So Kimi has been. Look, I want to change it up here. So I'm going a bit of a left field. Trying to throw shit at the wall, see what sticks. Kimi's had a phenomenal start to the year, but I think this is a tough track, and he's gonna show his inexperience on this track, perhaps. Not saying that I'm not going for him because I would love him to perform well, but it's just a sort of a
it's
a hunch, I could say.
I think he's had points every single time he's driven this year, which for a rookie driver taking that Mercedes seat, that is incredible.
Yes. Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, if you're a rookie, you're gonna make mistakes.
100%.
This is one of those tracks.
100%.
I agree.
I've gone class with Verstappen because again, I think this track really is gonna be sort of similar to that Japan style where he's so good at controlling the car through flowing, change of direction, in high speed, cornering, just mastering the brake pedal.
Yep.
I think he's going to have that covered, and he's going to be a class above the rest. The car's not going to be up to it. I think it's going to suit the Red Bull a bit more, this track, than Bahrain, because it needs that good front end to take those corners at high speed.
Yeah.
But he's not going to have the car like obviously McLaren will. So I still think McLaren's going to get away with the win, but I think Verstappen could podium. Or even split the McLarens. I wouldn't be surprised if he split the McLarens up. Because as we know so far, Red Bull and Verstappen are not afraid to go for it and go out on a fucking limb and take what's if there's a position available, they're gonna go
gonna
out
do
and
everything
take
they can
it.
to take it.
Exactly. So, I think it suits them in this position.
Yeah, I mean, this takes you back to last race when they were coming out of the pit wall and they were playing that little game of chicken to see who would go off on the grass first. But actually, I have a question for you.
Yeah.
You're saying Red Bull and Verstappen is great, but Yuki Tsunoda, do you reckon he figures it out, or you reckon he's still
good? Yeah, good. I don't know actually, but I think it's gonna be in the end. Tsunoda's probably the best person for the seat at this time.
Mm-hmm.
Although now that they've gone Tsunoda, I'm thinking, mate, why did we not fucking go Ricciardo? Why did we not get Ricciardo in the seat if we wanted experience?
He drove that car better than anyone else at testing.
So, but that's a ramble for another day. But as of now, you've got 4 Red Bull drivers. Tsunoda's the best one for the second seat. That's 100%. In my opinion, that's just what it is. 100%. He is, right? Doohan looks like he's going to retain his seat. That's a bit of a sidetrack rant, bit of a tangent I've got here. But Doohan looks like he's going to retain his seat. That's also banging news. So yeah, back to Tsunoda. He's the best person for the seat, definitely. And whether he figures it out or not, he's still the best person for the seat. So I think it shows more about the Red Bull car itself than Tsunoda if they're shit or if they're good, Yeah. So I think Tsunoda scores points, but he doesn't top 5. I'm saying, he's in that 6 to 8 range.
Okay.
Which is still good for the Red Bull. Verstappen, if Verstappen's on the podium, and Tsunoda's 7th, I'd say that's positive.
That's still points for him. You can't really complain.
Exactly. I mean, they weren't getting shit out of Lawson, so
So actually, speaking of Liam Lawson, he's actually had a quite decent stint back at.
But the Bahrain was pretty awful though. Bahrain was pretty awful with the penalties, so.
I don't know. Do you reckon it's nerves? What do you think is going on with Liam Lawson? Because
I don't know.
Last season he was actually not too bad.
Yeah, I think it's just pressure of being in that Red Bull, like how all the drivers have said. Push when you're having to try to push so hard in a car that's making you uncomfortable. You're gonna make way more mistakes as opposed to being in a medium, mid-pack car that's easier to drive relative. You can fucking throw that thing around, right? You can throw it around a car that isn't going to kick out on you, right? Yeah. But if you've got a car that, you just turn in a bit too early, then it snaps, you're going to be way more cautious. Yeah. So I just reckon that's what it's down to. Yeah. Whereas Verstappen has got that so dialed in, no one else can do it like that.
I just think it's crazy. You go from winning F2, dominating almost, to coming into F1 and crumbling like this. You don't really see this very often.
Yeah, it's crazy work. Anyway, I'm going to throw it back to you. Behrman or Ocon?
Ooh. Okay, see this.
Behrman last race was 20th to 10th. He's had the good debut in the Ferrari last year at Saudi. But they're both scoring, so who's going to finish ahead?
Who's going to finish? Oh, man.
Head to head.
I love Ollie Behrman, but again, I think just on experience, Esteban Ocon takes it. Because, again, there are some things in F1 that, you just have to have driven the track to know. Yeah. And you have to have driven an F1 car in that track to know.
Ocon did have a few years ago, a little bit of biff with Alonso in Saudi. I can't remember if it was 21 or 22.
It would have been 21.
Yeah, and Alonso had a fair crack at him. So I don't know. Maybe there's some teammate games going in for Ocon, but nah. I reckon Behrman's just a class. He is a gun. He is rapid.
He's funny too. He has a good personality for F1.
100%. Otherwise, not much else has happened in this week of F1, other than what I've mentioned. I mean, I did see a story about Verstappen and Mercedes. So it was brought up again that Verstappen and Toto trying to replace Russell with Verstappen. And now we're seeing how the season's played out, first part of the season. What are your thoughts? You're Toto. Are you putting in Verstappen in place of Russell?
I think that if I was Toto
so next year, you've got a choice. You've got a choice. Who you got?
I think for Toto right now, I wouldn't change a thing in Mercedes. I think he's found the future in Kimi Antonelli, and replacing your number one driver, who at the moment is George Russell, with a big personality like Max Verstappen, is going to absolutely destroy Kimi Antonelli's career development. I mean, you're 17 years. You can't even drive a real car, and you're hurling this thing around an F1 track at what, like 300 km.
So what are you talking about in place of Russell?
I'm saying don't touch this Mercedes team because in 1 to 2 years this will be Kimi Antonelli's team. Yeah, this is like a Lewis Hamilton coming into that early McLaren. Yeah. You don't touch it because you got something special. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I like that take 100%, and I back that, but in a different way for Russell, because Russell, he's been outperforming that Mercedes every race this year. 100%.
He's been absolutely incredible, and any chance he gets to be in the points or to be on a podium, to be on pole, he's going to take it, and he has been absolutely phenomenal. And I predict he's going to be like that for the rest of the season. And I also think, same thing as you were talking about, development in terms of Kimi. Russell seems like a really good mentor to be around. And he came up in Williams, like,
he's driven tractors around for years, so he knows what it's like.
He's got appreciation, so I think he's a good mentor for Kimi, and he'll be able to, teach him the ins and outs of the industry, not necessarily on the track, because we know Kimi's a fucking gun, but those off track, how to negotiate life in F1 or whatever. Like, I think George is probably a good person to have on your side. So
I think it's a maturity thing. Like, I think Toto was talking about it last season, where he didn't know if George was mature enough to have that number one seat, and he sort of proved himself. I think that's where he can sort of imprint on Kimi a bit more.
Yeah, mad. So I mean, it's going to be interesting to see. Maybe even we see in the next year or two Kimi overtake Russell in terms of points. So we don't know.
If I'm betting, that's where I'm putting my money.
Yeah, there you go. Do you have any other takeaways, any other predictions or elements that you think could play a factor this weekend?
Actually, I have. So this is for not the weekend. This is for Formula One in general. The car for next year. Yep. The sort of like display car, if you will, is actually smaller in footprint.
Yes.
Than the car for this year.
Yes.
Do you reckon there's going to be a trend in trying to make the car smaller again and make that package raceable?
Yes. Because I think what's happened in the last few years, right? This era of regulation started at a place where let's get rid of dirty air. Let's get the cars following each other, have close racing like we did back in the day, glory days, right? And they sort of achieved that, but Red Bull was too good, right? Leclerc and Ferrari battled them for the first half of the year, fell off a cliff for the second half of the year. That happened for a few years. Now we've got this development race that's been going on for, we're in our fourth year. All the cars are so developed that they've added all this aero, and now we've got the same issue. Cars are so well refined, there's dirty air again. Yeah. So, cars following the next year's cars, I think, are going to have active aero as well, because they're down on power, because they're more reliant on the electric component. Yeah. So they're down on power, so they need active aero to make them faster on the straights. And still have the grip around the corners. But I actually rate the fact that the cars are going to get smaller, because I think they're too big at the moment.
Yeah, hopefully we get to a point where we can go racing at Monaco again instead of just playing the go-kart
that's the
game.
thing as well. Like, the cars probably, I feel like there's a cool spectacle about the cars being smaller and then being like thrown around. The cars are sick now, but like just a smaller car looks like it's just like throwing around the track more, and there's more room for passing. That I think is a big thing as well. So I reckon it's a good thing that they're getting smaller. Obviously, I'd love to go NA V10, but I don't know if we're going to go that path.
It'll be a while. I mean, I know Porsche is doing the whole biofuels push into sustainability, and they threw a ton of money into it, and then they binned it, and now it's sort of back again with this sort of bidding a seat into F1.
Exactly. But obviously, I've seen as well recently, as probably a lot of you have seen, looking like Mercedes and Audi are a big no to it. So I don't know what's going to happen, but either way, I don't think we can keep going down this electric route, because then we're just going to be Formula E, which already exists.
Exactly.
So.
You know why though? It's the sunk cost fallacy, right? Mercedes has spent so much money building this like agnostic platform that they can put a bunch of different cars on and just sell it, and they've gone, oh my god, we've just used all of our motorsport money and our motorsport tech for this. Yeah. What do we do?
Yeah, Mercedes have put all the energy and time into the development of these engines. Same as Audi, right? Audi literally came into the sport. The only reason they sort of followed through is because F1 was like, yeah, we'll go this route with the engines. We'll give everyone an even playing field to develop a new engine. So that's probably why it's not going to happen. But at the end of the day, they may have to do a U-turn because they can't keep going in this direction.
Exactly. So, it's bad for the sport.
Yeah, 100% agreed. And we need some sort of spectacle. That's what That's what being a sport is. Like, you can't just have dead cars that like sound like shit. So we know how everyone complained in 2014.
Yeah, again, like I think to add to that point, F1 is a sport about, yes, the drivers and the driving, but also the engineering. I think a bigger engineering breakthrough is finding a sustainable way to have combustion engines and run these biofuels, as opposed to just making a bigger battery and making motors that spin at a faster RPM.
Exactly.
The waste product as well, if you want to talk about sustainability.
Yeah.
A battery, you can't recycle these things.
Logistics, like Ishane mentioned last week, we're going around the world. There's so many other factors that go into it. And they've already done trial runs with sustainable fuels. Like Vettel has been like leading the charge in that, where, we're doing those sustainable fuels.
Seb's been doing that for years though. And honestly, I think if Seb was still in the sport today, which I really wish he didn't retire when he did, he would love this sort of push to biofuels as opposed to the whole
hopefully we can
battery
get there.
thing.
Hopefully we can get there.
We'll see.
Yeah. Anyway, anything else to add before we wrap up?
That's pretty much it. I'm expecting a McLaren 1-2. I'm expecting Piastri to take it home. Yeah. And I'm expecting a little bit of beef coming out of that McLaren garage because
Yeah. Well, Zach said there will be a battle on, eventually. So we'll see what happens there, but that's all we got for today, guys. Appreciate you watching. Let us know what you guys think and your predictions for the weekend. We'd love to read them and discuss them next week as well. So make sure you drop them in the comments. But yeah, enjoy the weekend, everyone. It's Easter. So have a good long weekend if you're in Australia. And we'll see you next week for the review.